Why did I want to become a councillor? Well, I didn't really get a huge amount of time to think about it, to be honest, because I was elected at a by-election, so I had to make a decision fairly quickly. But I think what interested me, I'd had a really good councillor who had represented the ward, Bellevue ward, for a long time, and I'd always been impressed by how he approached things. He seemed to have a really good approach of being able to achieve things at a higher council level, but also doing a lot of things in the local community. And I'd always admired what he'd done and thought, oh, it might be interesting to see whether I could make a few changes and some differences to my local community. I also just have always really enjoyed working locally with groups of people. I've been involved in all sorts of small community projects, and it just seemed to be something that I hoped I would enjoy, and perhaps I could make a bit of a difference as well. So what does the role involve? I must admit I've been surprised by just how broad the role has ended up being. At a Shropshire Council level, you get to be involved in all sorts of decisions via voting, quite high level decisions about how taxpayers' money is going to be spent. So we get to vote on things like whether we should keep the Shire Hall or not, big budget decisions, or a whole range of issues that you get to be involved in. And you can also put forward motions trying to encourage change. I recently had a motion accepted at council which was around cycling infrastructure. So you can influence things at a strategic level, and so that's quite interesting. I'm also involved in the Health and Adult Social Care Scrutiny Committee, and that's a group of councillors across all parties looking at scrutinising the work of health and social care, and that's obviously been really quite interesting and challenging this year with the pandemic. And so in a sense that's a kind of softer influence, but you do get to really quiz and question and work together with other councillors to shape what's happening. And so if you're interested, if health and social care isn't your thing, there's a whole range of those sorts of committees, from planning to transport, all sorts of things that you can get involved in. And then there's all sorts of things that you do at a local level within your ward. So that's really varied, and it can be as simple as someone's got a pothole. Can you help and report it, perhaps? To a whole range of different things, from being involved in local community groups. There's all sorts of formal things. There's lots of charities in my ward, but every ward will have its own makeup. There's lots of groups, churches that you can get involved with. But then there's the kind of unexpected, and I guess this year has been the year of the unexpected. We started in February, certainly in Bellevue ward, with floods, and unexpectedly I played a role in trying to coordinate some of the reaction to that. And also then the pandemic, and I think most councillors have been involved in trying to coordinate some sort of volunteering response to the pandemic, and certainly that's what's been happening in my ward. So, in some senses, some of the things that happen can be quite unexpected, and you're there to respond to what's happening in your ward. I must say, I think this year probably has been unusual. I suspect most years aren't quite as busy with the unexpected, but that is part of your role. And then, what do I enjoy about being a councillor? Well, I quite enjoy some of the higher level strategic stuff and influencing things. But me personally, what I've enjoyed the most has probably been the stuff I do within the wards, and that has been as wide and varied as you can imagine. I've lived in my ward for over 20 years now, and I thought I knew it pretty well, but you just learn so much being a councillor about the different groups of people doing things. There's so many people who put so much work and effort into the ward, and you learn an awful lot about that. So I would say certainly that's been some of my biggest enjoyment. It's nice, sometimes you do manage to make small changes, and sometimes the small changes are the most important. Things like managing to stop water pooling at a crossing actually makes a big difference to people, especially people maybe with disabilities, and whether they want to go out at all. Getting a new bin put in, those sorts of things can actually be really rewarding. So for me, doing stuff at a ward level has been really enjoyable, although, it can be pretty satisfying doing things at a higher level as well. So I would really encourage anyone who's interested in working locally and also at a more strategic level to have a good think about being a councillor. It's really enjoying and rewarding, and you learn an awful lot.